Welcome to the Mostly Traverse City podcast. I'm Julie Bronze.
And I'm Don Pichet.
Each episode, we introduce you to the real treasure of TC, its people.
You're invited to get to know the soul of Traverse City, one story at a time. Enjoy the latest episode of the Mostly Traverse City podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Mostly Traverse City podcast, and I'm here with my dear friend, Shawn Winter. Shawn, we've known each other for... God dang,
10
bro.
years now. Almost
At
11.
Least, yeah.
Yeah.
We met through the Traverse City Curling Club. You and your bride came out
Yep.
and were curling, and you were part of the, I think, founding board, maybe, or pretty close.
Came in right after it got up and running. Yeah.
I remember.
Yep.
I remember we're here in Shawn's house. Should I give out the address yet?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
You can find it if you Google
It's public record.
But yeah, do you remember? I remember what we did here when I was here last time. We were building those curling boards that we used at the what's that thing they do down
the street, Friday Night Live.
Friday Night Live, yeah,
downtown. Yeah.
At downtown. That's
Yep.
pre-COVID.
Yeah,
I don't
that
know
was-
if they do that anymore.
They do one or two nights a summer,
Okay.
just in August. One of them corresponds on the same night they do the annual sidewalk sale.
So
but-
we had built those what looked like a miniature curling thing. It was 2 or 3 4x8 sheets
Yep.
of plywood,
Yep.
all latched together.
Yep.
You put that together out in the garage.
Yeah, I think we put
It
some
was a hit,
decals on
man. It was a hit.
It drew attention for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it worked as designed
But
for that
now the
purpose.
cool thing is we have our own spot to curl, and it's got real ice on it, and we're grateful for that. So we've known you for quite some time, and a few different versions of you, and we'll talk about that. But tell us a little bit about your connection to Traverse City. You're not from here.
I'm from the area.
From the area.
Yep.
But you go ahead.
Okay.
Spill it.
Yeah, so I grew up in Kalkaska County. So I went to
Okay.
school in Kalkaska. I lived between Kalkaska and Grayling out by Bear Lake.
Oh, wow.
So, but if you were living in one of those adjacent communities, you can probably recognize that Traverse City is where you came for everything.
Yeah.
So Traverse City, even though I didn't live in TC proper, it felt like part of home.
Yeah.
I also thought it was normal because I knew no better that you drive 60 miles per hour for an hour to go to a movie theater, right? Like that was just, I knew no better.
Part of life,
yeah.
yeah.
And so you drove into Traverse for everything. I remember my friends and I always hanging out at the mall, and then downtown was getting revitalized. This place called Espresso Bay opened, and we'd hang out there.
yeah.
It felt like we were on the show Friends because we were in a downtown coffee shop, so that was my connection to Traverse City. After college, I moved to Virginia.
Where'd you go to school?
Sorry, Western Michigan
Okay.
University. So I went there for earth science and biology education. And they told us early in the program that Michigan produces way more teachers than it needs. So most of us would be moving out. And so that ended up being the case. And
Yeah.
I ended up getting a job in Richmond, Virginia. I was there for 10 years. And like many people probably in my shoes, this area draws you back.
Yeah.
You realize how special it is when you step away.
Yeah.
And so we came back in 2015.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, so you were just getting back when we got the thing going there.
That was
I didn't realize
my wife
that.
had seen an advertisement at her employer at Haggerty, and I think we were just coming off an Olympic year the year before.
2014
and
was the
so-
Olympics, yeah.
Yeah, and so we had been watching it, and of course, my whole childhood, I loved watching curling. It was such a fascinating, quirky little sport,
yeah.
And then this opportunity was here, and we went to a Learn to Curl. At that night, we met our friends Chrissy and Danny, who we're still closely indebted to. So
Wait a minute. So did you guys know each other before you met them there?
No, we were both put on a sheet for Learn to Curl, and that's how we met. So.
And you guys go on vacations as families.
Oh
together and stuff like
yeah.
That's crazy.
Back when our kids were young, it was easier just to spend the night at each other's houses
Yeah.
because we could put
Yeah.
them to bed and
Yeah.
the adults could hang out. But yeah, I mean, we just were drawn by the community. It felt like it checked a box that we need in the winter sometimes,
Yeah,
of
for
being
sure.
in a big, bright, open space, being active, being social, and it
sure.
just really drew us in.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. Well, I know our club, when you were part of that leadership thing, we were enriched by your service, and maybe those days will come back again sometime. So you get to hold a really unique and I'm going to say unenviable position in the city as a city planner. And we can talk a little bit about that. But what do you think your gifts are, Shawn? What do you bring to the world that maybe you see things in a different way or care about at a level that others don't?
I mean, I think at the heart of it, I do truly care about people, my neighbors, my family, the people of my community. And I don't think that is something I arrived at on my own. I think it's a reflection of the values in the house I was raised in. That's kind of how we were brought up. Just like how I didn't know it was any different to drive an hour to get to the closest movie theater.
Yeah. This
I
is
didn't
just
realize
the way it
you
is.
just care about people, right?
Yeah.
You see someone in need, you try to help them. So that's one that I would say. I think a curiosity, just general for life. You know, I used to be a teacher for a long time, and that just lifelong learner DNA is in me. Like I just have a curiosity to understand the world around me, the people around me, the nuance to it. It's easy to broad brush things, but there's always so much more below the surface, you know? And then I think one thing that maybe is a strength that parlays into my professional role is being able to conceptualize and see kind of the interconnectedness of things. You know, I as a former science teacher, I like to use like the ecosystem model in my current profession, right? You know, planners aren't necessarily the subject matter experts on road design, water pipes, things like that, but you know, we hover at 30,000 feet looking at the coordination of everything.
Yeah.
And just like an ecosystem, you can't put all your emphasis on one species, otherwise things fall out of balance. And it's the same thing with the city. You can't just focus on one segment of the housing market. You got to focus on the totality of the housing ecosystem and how pulling one lever here might affect this aspect of it over there. And, you know, just always monitoring that. And,
Yeah, in the healthcare space, we call that holistic care.
Yeah.
And remember, you know, when Julie and I started practicing, we're holistic providers, and you know, it's like wackos or something, you know. But it is difficult to have that. You see things from that vision, and the guy that runs the pipe sees only the pipe. And the guy that makes the road sees only the road. And the guy that takes out the shrapnel sees only the shrapnel. And it is, and no one wants to, I shouldn't say no one, you're in an unenviable position because you're talking to the piper and the road guy and this guy and that guy, none of which necessarily focus only on the 30,000 foot view.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge.
Yeah, and a lot of times in my role, my job is to inform rather than call it, you know, say,
to
this
guide, and this is the
to
way
meet
it's
this. You know, you mentioned holistic health. We would call it our comprehensive plan, you know, for the city. That is, you know, holistic in its sense, and you know, just making sure that the specialists in their own fields and the decisions they make are aligned and contributing or supporting that broader big picture vision, you know, because we as humans can get really comfortable in our silos. You know, I mean, I do it myself all the time in my personal life, right? And you got to step back sometimes and just be reminded of the bigger picture. And,
well, you know, and I think, Shawn, that you to some degree, that's part of the reason that we're doing, that Julie and I are doing this podcast, is so that we feel comfortable enough with our people in our community to have a conversation. Hey, Shawn, you know, can we get a cup of coffee? I want to talk to you about what's going on with this thing, and have a conversation about it rather than stand up there with some boards where there's no conversation at the corner of Front and Union and just yell. Like that doesn't solve problems. And there's a time and a place for protests. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But so often, and I gotta say, every once in a while, I'll tune in to the city commission meetings when you get, I see you're on the agenda to go, oh, what are they going to do to Shawn here on this one? You know, and I don't know if I told you this, but growing up, one of my father's best buddies was Kirk Harrington.
Oh, yeah.
One of your predecessors. I think he might have been the first city planner. Right?
I'm only the fourth.
Okay, because I didn't think it was a city before Kirk was here.
Yeah,
You know, a little burg or whatever you called it. But yeah, and I spent enough time with Kirk hunting and hanging out in the cabin and stuff like this to kind of hear the complexity, because that was his place in some ways to just sort of like let it all out, and and no one was going to give him a hard time mostly because we didn't know what he was talking about, so, but well, that's great. I think you bring a great perspective, and I know spending time with you at the table on a board, I know that you have that capacity to to see the 360, and
I don't know if that's just a factor of how my brain's wired, if that's part of the professional training I've had over my life, but just
I'll bet you it's a combination.
To be my default mode in a lot of ways.
I think there's a thing that we call giftedness.
Yeah.
There's some religious connotations to that to some degree. I don't know, I can't speak with precision about that, but I can say that you have a propensity, and people have a propensity to kind of be attracted to thinking in this way and seeing things in that way, and that makes you really good at this and really good at that, which we could get down into a huge rabbit trail on this. And I see it happen all too often with kids in our practice, where they took an aptitude test that said I'd be good at plumbing, or that it said I'd be a good teacher, or this or that. But it's more than just you're scoring a test. And it's how you solve problems, how you see problems. Do you see problems? Do you see opportunities in it? In some ways, and we are definitely on a tangent here now, so if this needs to be edited out, go for it, girl. Zoe, that is.
Nice to meet you, Zoe.
Yeah, Zoe's our editor. Maybe sometimes we're just, in our attempt to help kids in making decisions, we're just kind of like blocking them from just being
themselves.
Their best.
Yeah.
Being. I mean, as a school teacher, and you taught science in school, that's a pretty narrow tunnel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're not talking about English. You're not talking about this, but really, what you're wired to do is talk about a whole city with lots of different parts
and lots of different perspectives.
You would have aged really fast if you were a teacher all the time. That's my supposition.
I think so. Yeah. There's probably reason my wife and I, who are both teachers, are no longer teachers. Nor is my sister, who taught at the same school that we both taught at.
That takes a special wiring.
Yeah, it definitely does. And, I would say it's one of those fields that I don't think there's a lot of respect and appreciation, for the professionals in it.
Yeah.
And,
So let's say someone's new to Traverse City, and you bump into them here or there. How would you suggest, or what are some of the strategies you guys found to kind of plug into this community, to plug into Traverse City? We hear a lot, I'm not telling you anything you haven't heard. It's so hard to get, to be part of this community. What would you suggest?
Yeah, I think you're right. It is hard. And we've heard others. And I mean, we granted moved here in our mid to late 30s, and that's much different than moving to a community when you're 20. There's just the requirements of life at that point pull you in different directions and stuff. So, I guess it's hard for me, just like teaching, right? Like I got to deliver a message almost individually to each student based on their needs. So it's kind of, okay, if you're new here to Traverse, what's your station in life right now? And let's identify that to figure out where you can plug in. Are you a new parent? Well, there's some great opportunities to get plugged in with some new, like new parent groups and stuff like that. I really think that's so important to find people to connect with that are in a similar station of life with you, just to be able to talk with people about that, because otherwise it can feel very isolating.
Yeah.
So I know for us, I mean, we like outdoors and we like to be active, and so we were drawn to those type of opportunities. And the curling club is a good example of that. A track club, some cycling events,
and when you mentioned that curling thing, I didn't even think about that much. Like we're not pigeonholed with a demographic, really.
No,
like I look at the cycling community.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's a wide berth, of ages and people that can participate. Men's hockey.
Yeah.
not so much.
Yeah,
You know what I
right,
mean?
yeah, exactly.
Like, they're not that many. There's a handful of guys, past 50 or 60 that are still playing, but it drops off precipitously. Curling is not one of those. It's kind of lifetimey,
It's kind of lifetimey, and in some ways, I think of it like golf, although golf
Yeah.
probably has a demographic associated with it a lot, but
Yeah.
that's changing as that sport has changed. But it's one of those sports where you're never going to master it,
Right.
curling, you
Yeah.
know? And I joke all the time. I mean, I could be sitting there. I was on a team with Danny for a long time,
Oh, yeah, okay.
you know, and I'm like, on any given night, a team of grandmothers who
Yeah.
in their first year could just beat our asses, right?
Yeah,
and
for
humble
sure.
us. And
Yeah.
that's what keeps us coming back all the
Yeah,
time is
yeah,
like
absolutely.
there's not a lot of stratification. And
No.
I think that's something that drew us to curling because in life there is a lot of stratification of people,
yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
it's like this great equalizer.
Yeah, and this is not a plug for the curling club, although we just sort of stumbled into it. But it dawned on me when when you were talking about this, like it is, it's a great space for people to plug in and at least find a community, and
Well, yeah, and I mean, as from the club, and as we just discussed, it doesn't draw a singular demographic.
Not
so
at
you
all.
can find your people
Yeah.
in that organization
Yeah.
that are, walking through similar
Yeah.
phases of life. And
So I know cycling was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
When we first met, you were really on to the bike paths, and that was a big part of what's going on. That's that's just part of the culture here now.
Yeah.
Like, people know this. Traverse City now is a biking community.
yeah, we just received designation last week that we're now from the League of American Bicyclists, a silver level bicycle friendly community. We used to be
Okay.
a bronze one, so
Okay,
we're getting
moving on up.
recognition that we are moving in the right direction. So occasionally those feel good
Nice.
to
Nice. Awesome.
get that affirmation that
What's your perfect day in Traverse City?
oh well, probably be in the summer. Yeah, I mean, I think most of us would say that. Although I just absolutely love the winter too. Like, this is so nice and cozy, and it's such a change of pace of life. And
Yeah.
but that's been an evolution of learning to lean into that. So I'd say a perfect day would be probably waking up, going on a little bike ride, maybe with my family. The type of bike riding I like to do has changed over time as life has changed a little bit too. But
What is it now?
quality time with the family.
You mean it's not just going out there and just grinding it out, and
not as much.
Okay.
You
you still do some of the racing?
No, but I am interested once, I get some more free time in my life, getting back into some more of the events, more of the bike camping, like doing
Okay,
the trips
yeah,
and stuff. And that takes training for
Yeah,
it. But, there came a point where, my pursuit of that monopolizes my whole family's Saturday sometimes, and
Another wake-up call.
another wake-up call, right? And then
I don't know anything
they're
about
sitting
that.
around waiting for me to get back to go do things, and so it's fine. I have no resentment about that. But yeah, probably something like a bike ride or maybe a little run. We would definitely go and get breakfast somewhere. Probably walk around the neighborhoods. We just love our community. I mean, there's
Yeah.
something. My wife's not from here. She's not from the Midwest. She's a different part of the country, and she's like, you just wave at people on their porches when you walk by.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's what we do. They're people, right?
Yeah.
And they live in my community,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
being present among them, and then eventually getting our way to probably one of the beaches on Lake Michigan, and coming back into town for dinner.
So you have a city planner, and that's what's in his heart. Is he's waving, he's high, he's a friendly guy. Anytime we run into each other, downtown or whatever in a restaurant, it's always, hey Don, and that's you don't just bring wisdom and a perspective, but you bring the whole game. And connectedness doesn't just happen by creating the right environment for it. It still takes an effort to make a connection. And
I would agree.
and that's one of the many things I love about you. Shawn, what do you think, people that know you well, what do you think they would say is your superpower?
That's a good question. Boy, that's hard. And it might be kind of going back to what we said earlier, is I kind of have that ability to think 3 steps into the future sometimes, but again, I think that's a trained thing. Maybe it's part innate in me and stuff like that. But I think my ability to see and maybe understand like the big picture and the interconnectedness of things too. I mean, and maybe sometimes that's annoying as well, not just a superpower.
To that end, then we brought this up a little earlier. In the world that you're in this world of planning, community planning, or however that thing, is holistic or holism a concept?
I think within the professional planning, yes, I would definitely say that.
With that terminology, or is it called something different?
I think we would typically, like I said earlier, probably use the word comprehensive more than holistic is kind of the more industry term that we use. But with the same meaning and same intent. I think where it's challenging for us is as planners professionally, because I have colleagues across the country in this field, and it's very similar everywhere. Is we can bring that information, but we're not always the decision makers.
Right.
So the implementation of strategies that may be more comprehensive are beyond our control. We can set the table,
right,
but it's up to others to show up.
Here's the plan that I recommend, but you gotta execute it. You can't be the executor.
I point out too that like when our department recommends a plan, a lot of times that's based on extensive community engagement. That was informed.
It's not just Shawn's idea.
No, and that's the whole thing. Where
wait a minute, I thought it was all you, bro.
Okay.
No,
we have a professional code of ethics that we follow, and it's all about community input on that, and but it's also driven by the data, the laws, other constraints that you might have to work within, and it's understanding too that these are the decisions or recommendations that are in the best interest in the community as a whole moving forward. We don't always operate at today. We operate in an unknown future.
Now,
and it's a lot of times we're trying to prevent situations. We're trying to solve problems that haven't materialized yet. That's kind of like the nature of planning. But they're trending, and you see those trends, and you try to avert those negative situations that impact the humans of our community, because at the end of the day, it all comes down to the people, right? The economy affects the people, housing affects people, transportation affects how people move around. Like it is really rooted in the human experience in our communities. And I draw back a lot of times our city attorney when she does like new commissioner orientation after the election, she always makes that comment that at every meeting, every decision you make, half the town will be upset with you, and that's the reality of it. But it's, these are the decisions that have to be made in the best interest of the whole moving forward. And we can all sit there and point at a decision and say, well, that part of it I don't like. I can look at our recent community master plan as a planner. There's plenty I don't like in it, but it's not my plan. It's the community's plan. So it's driven by a collective input.
Shawn, I'm going to share with you what I think your superpower is.
Thank you. Because I don't know how to identify my own. I don't view myself in that lens.
I think you have this great gift to be able to see the whole, to anticipate and look to see if we go in that direction, we can expect that and this and that and the other thing. And to do it in a way that's not offensive, that's not judgmental, and that doesn't tear you away from being the human that you really are. And I know from my dad's experience on the city commission years and years and years ago, you can get soured fast.
Yeah.
And you can get in that environment and you're not, let's call it political if you want to call it political. And you become not such a great human outside of that space. And I don't see that in you. And that resilience to be able to do your job with passion, with compassion, and with excellence, and then step away and be an excellent person outside of that space, that's a resilient superpower.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. It's fun. It's interesting you bring that up because in my own like personal reflection, I think that's currently something I'm struggling with because I feel like I think in my role, especially, we're a town in a region that is changing at an exceptional rate. You know? I think it's important to note that I'm not causing that, nor is the city planning commission, right? It's factors beyond our control, but
It's that damn bay. If
it's
they
that
would just
damn
get rid of the
bay.
bay,
I know.
it
Haven't
wouldn't
they
be
talked
such a
about
big
filling
whoop.
it in for a while now? So, but we're the ones that have to get up and talk about it.
Yeah.
And we're the ones that have to get
You
up
get the
and
target.
offer solutions. And when you have something that's abstract and somewhat enigmatic, like a community changing at a fast rate, it's like you don't know where to direct that frustration.
Yeah.
So it's easy a lot of times, well, that person who's up there talking about it, let's, And so, yeah, I've been in this state probably in the last year where I question myself. I feel like at times I'm becoming more of like a cynical asshole, just like, and I'm putting myself in check on that because I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, you gotta hold, like don't go down that hole,
Right.
and it gets hard. I think that's the nature of public sector work a lot of times too. And so, yeah.
I think it's the nature of an innate desire to want to do the right thing, to bring people the most benefit that you can bring them. And if it doesn't, if that's not the decision, you get what you deserve, but you can't be that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I get we get it. I mean, it was like, people come and will you help us solve the problem? Yes, this is what we need to do. This is our recommendation. Nah, I don't want to do that. Okay, well,
Yeah, yeah.
next. You know what I
just
mean? And
go on with the
and
next.
that you can do that without a chip on your shoulder, with the ability to sit down at the table or on a couch and have a conversation, and we're just having a good time, and we look forward to the next time that we get together and have a chat. And I think I want you, if you're watching this and you're getting to learn the heart of this guy, I hope you feel the emotion that he speaks with, and the sincerity. It's not just a job. This is who he is. And we are so damn fortunate to have you in this city and part in this role. Well, and anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I go back to people, when we talk about things, just what the topic we were just talking about and change and stuff. It is hard, for people. I understand it. Change can be a loss, right? We can feel scared about it. And that's a real feeling, and we can talk about that, and we can talk about what we fear we're losing as things are changing. And I think that's important because as we think about our community changing, we're better able to identify that which we value and want to preserve. We can be more intentional about it.
Yeah.
And I think, and I get it, like that feeling of loss it's grief. I've had a lot of grief in the last few years, and like that's a powerful emotion that drives a lot of people. So, but there's compassion for it,
Well, I think the one thing that doesn't have to change, and there's just no doubt, you're not going to pack another, I don't know how many people are projected to move into this place.
Yeah.
Another 150,000 of them into this community over the next 10 years, whatever it might be. But that it's not required that we change how we interact with one another.
I think that's
and how
important.
human relationships work. That doesn't have to change. The environment, the surroundings, all that stuff, that may change. But how we treat one another as neighbors doesn't have to change. And I know you, I think well enough, and myself and Julie, we're committed to making sure that this place feels like, regardless of what it looks like, feels like the kind of place where I can walk up to somebody and say, I'm grateful that you live in my town with me. And again, that's kind of the purpose of this, is getting to know people. So I know this. I'm speaking for you, and tell me if I'm wrong, but if you run into this guy, and you might find him at the coffee shop downtown or having a glass of wine, or I don't know where you might find, I'll bet you'd be okay with somebody coming up and saying hi.
100%.
100%.
I mean, because again, I don't do this work to build buildings or roads, but to make a better home for people.
Right.
So yeah, and on that topic of, human connection, I think that's rooted a lot in curiosity, like I started with. I think we need to be curious of other people, not in a
judgmental,
suspect way,
right,
but
right,
like
right.
in an authentic. I want to know the you.
Yeah. Right.
Tell me your story.
Right.
And that can inform my perspectives, and and I think it's okay that we as people can disagree on things and respect each other's humanity. I mean, there's people in our neighborhood that vehemently disagree with some of my positions on things, but we can sit at the block party and break bread and
that's what it
enjoy
comes
each other's
down to,
company and talk about the ready to assemble cabinets you bought and whether they were a good deal. Like really just be in life together and strip all the nonsense away. And it doesn't have to, our differences don't have to define us.
Exactly.
They can refine us in more obvious ways.
Wisdom.
Yeah, and I think that we just gotta just keep respecting each other and helping each other too. That's so important. I truly believe like when you help someone, you're helping yourself as much as you're helping them, right? And
That's awesome.
And it's okay to lean into that. That's not necessarily selfish, because at the end you're providing for some others.
Well, appreciate that. You don't sound like a city planner.
Maybe I shouldn't
mayor
be one.
material.
No politics for me. Honestly, I watched something the other day. I've never been diagnosed with ADD. My staff thinks I'm completely ADD, but and I saw something where it was like, yeah, adult ADD isn't changing jobs every like frequently or whatever. It's completely changing careers every like 10 years. And I'm like, oh shit, that hit hard, because I'm like, what's next?
What's next?
Yeah, no, I'm in that phase. I did that already
closer,
10
bro.
years ago. Yeah, exactly. And it's just
something's going to happen. Oh, you wake up someday maybe with some bib overalls on and go get the pitchfork and say, hey,
I've
honey.
been wearing. I got them out hanging in the garage. I'm building an addition.
It may have already started.
It's kind of planted some seeds, and it's funny. And as you say that, because I've always been drawn to public service, and as you know, I'm building this addition out here for my mother-in-law to move in, and it's just kind of opened my eyes. And that I think for most of my life, I saw working in the public sector as how you achieve public service, and I think it's kind of evolved over the last year of like, no, there's a lot of ways you can serve your community in different capacities, not just in public service. And because frankly, at the end of the day, when I look back and I see a wall that we tipped up and put in place, it feels like I moved the needle on housing a lot more that day than I have in the last 5 years with policies and regulations and stuff. It's that tangible,
actually
like
is
hit a dopamine almost, that reward center in the primal part of our brain feels tickled.
That's awesome. Well, Shawn, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and just chat.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that you're part of this community.
Thanks, buddy.
And then I can call you a friend.
Yeah, I appreciate that and respect you.
Yeah. So there we go. Another episode of the Mostly Traverse City podcast. Share this with a friend. Actually, share this with the friend who tends to get a little worked up when any policy stuff with downtown Traverse City happens, whether they live in this city or not. And say, hey, you ought to get to know this the city planner here in Traverse City. And maybe that perspective will change. I hope it does. Hope you have an amazing day. We'll see you next time on the Mostly Traverse City podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to the Mostly Traverse City podcast. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and keep living your own kind of magic.